May 1940. The Allies were on the back foot. Their army was shattered, broken, and falling to pieces. What remained of it was trying to make a desperate flee from Dunkirk in Operation Dynamo. 300,000 Allied troops had to leave behind everything that couldn't be taken on board. Tanks, weapons, fuel, supplies, important pieces of equipment had to be left behind. All that mattered was to get the soldiers back home. Britain remained the only refuge for the Allied nations. And well, Britain was on the brink of invasion upon itself. Until the Battle of Britain, it was on its own. But what the hell would they do next? Well, one man, Jack Lott, came up with the idea to organise a resistance in all forms of Europe. Jack understood that no nation at the moment could single-handedly take on the Axis powers, so he planned to use a specialised group of commando units to properly basically train the resistance in all forms of guerrilla warfare, including sabotage and insurrection. He wanted them to basically work together and fight the Axis powers on their own accord and prepare for a large-scale uprising which would liberate the rest of Europe. By 1941, Germany and its ally was the most powerful force in Europe. Jack worked alongside the SOE to basically build a form of resistance network that hadn't been seen before in France, Poland, Norway, even some suspected in Germany itself. For the most part of the war, from 1941 to 42, they worked with the SAS to launch raids on Axis positions in North Africa. But they also used a series of small escort-class cruisers which they had stolen from the Axis to launch a series of almost pirate or privateer-like raids against Axis positions, ports and shipping routes that led to North Africa, especially in the build-up to the Second Battle of El Alamein. By 1944 they had become an army on themselves and launched an invasion, but they found that their allies were on the brink of collapse, so they were only able to do minor damage to the Axis powers in Normandy. The next time they were brutally called on was during Operation Market Garden, and although Jack Lott and the Liberators were against the idea, believing the plan to have too many faults to be a success, they decided to go along anyway, to help the Dutch resistance, especially in Arnhem.
Fire! Fire!
By the end of the war, the Liberators were brought into the United Nations and were incorporated into its own military forces. With the arrival of the space age, the Liberators were quick to follow, ensure peace and liberty, especially as the camps on Mars began to become proper outposts, and soon these outposts in turn became cities and colonizations. And with the space age arrival, they met with the Federation of Systems, a galactic body ensuring peace and stability without the Milky Way. The Liberators become much bigger than they used to be in the past. By this time in history, the Liberators have become a fleet force onto their own, with a massive armada of vessels under their own command. Although they were still technically part of the United Nations and as such an ally of the Federation, its military was combined of its own sort, and fought alongside the Federation in a conflict with its next door neighbour, the Gardan Empire. However, it always acted under its own command, despite numerous positions and orders to maintain some element of stability when it came to a peaceful process. But when the invasion came, mankind was on the brink. The United Nations was broken and Earth was captured, alongside many of its colonies. The Liberators were in themselves struggling to react, like the rest of the galaxy. What remained of the Liberator and United Nations fleet after the initial invasion retreated and regrouped at a specialised and reinforced top-secret location, whereupon the fleet could rearm, regroup, repair any vessels that had been extremely damaged, and more importantly, figure out what the hell they were going to do next. but the question remained, what the hell were they going to do next? For the most part of the war, the Liberators acted in defense, using their fleets and military forces to defend planets. But for the most part, the invaders always had the upper hand when it came to technology. Slowly but surely, the Liberator fleets, which used to be a massive armada, slowly but surely began to dwindle in number, as more and more ships began to be destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Many people began to believe that the Liberators were on the brink of complete destruction. As the war dragged on, the Liberators would become a distant memory.